Right. Good morning once again, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Filmmakers Forum of the Nollywood Studies Centre of the School of Media and Communication, Pan Atlantic University. Today we have as a guest someone who I also comment, Taiwo Adeyemi. Taiwo, I welcome you very warmly. Problem to be muted. Welcome, Taiwo. Well, I have already read out your profile. So everyone knows whom we are speaking with. We have with us Taiwo Adeyemi, our guest, and like I said, a friend of mine as well. So let's set the ball rolling, Taiwo. If you can tell us something about yourself, because you began in those many years far, 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 far away. You began studying actually in the university, civil engineering. But here you are today in a completely different field. I know you left that to go into working in advertising. Can you tell us a little bit of that backstory?
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to everyone on the call. My story is very interesting, and like you said, I started off studying civil engineering, which was a big mistake. I I was following the wishes of my African parents, who thought that was the best approach, to getting some guarantee of success. I mean, maybe they were right, but I was a very creative child. And I'd always known that I wanted to work in the creative industry, even if I didn't really understand what that really entailed. But like, thank God for the internet. I found out that there was something called advertising, and I left my civil engineering degree, and I went to pursue advertising, and I was working in advertising agencies, basically helping brands and organizations tell their stories better using marketing tools on the internet. And it was from there that everything started becoming clearer to me that yes, I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to do. So advertising was the propeller, it was the launching pad for my creative endeavors many years ago.
Let me just go on a side track for a moment. You said something about your African parents making you go into, well, what they consider to be a more successful field. Now, that's a reality that to a large extent, I think it's prevalent that people consider the things of the arts a bit of a waste of time. And this comes up in so many ways. Given your years in this industry, of course, people can now see today that the creative industries are successful. People are doing very well. People are making a good living there. But to what extent do you still perceive that this bias against the humanities, against the arts, against these creative industries, to what extent do you perceive in your work that this still is a great obstacle?
I think it's way better, because there's now social proof that if you work in the arts, there can be tangible results for you. So our parents, my African parents, is now on TikTok. They can they can see the creators that are turning their devices into like money making tools. They can watch films. They can listen to Afrobeats. They can enjoy the fashion of Nigeria and of Africa. So because the social proof is becoming very evident and it's becoming undeniable that maybe, just maybe, this is also a path to success. So it's definitely improving. I think there are still people out there who believe that you must, there's a particular path for you to toil for you to be successful. But compared to the way it used to be, and speaking from my own context, I am very certain that the difference is now very clear. I remember the first time that I went back home to see my mom when I started working in advertising, and I tried to explain what this really meant for her. And I'm like, if you see the billboards when you're driving to your shop every morning, those things, those adverts you see in the middle of films when you're watching TV, that's our work. But it's because the language to communicate what we do as creative people really became very difficult. And they needed to get to the point where they themselves had to understand it their own way at their own time. And now they really do. They really do. My mom would call me and reference a TikTok creator or a YouTube creator and tell me, did I see this? She's probably the first person to break some news, even of my clients to me. Though I saw that your clients did this, I saw that your client did that. So it's changing gradually, and I hope that we get there permanently soon.
Now, one fallout of that bias has been that, well, when you have even policymakers that also entertain that kind of bias, of course, then we see that to a large extent, on the structural side, things suffer because we do not get the kind of insight or insightful structuring or policies that will help the industry to grow. For instance, we see that, once again, as you have said, things are changing. But we do see that if you look at the educational structure, for instance, not sufficient provisioning is made in terms of creating pathways for the different careers in the industry. So you, for instance, you are largely into talent management. I'm sure you did not undergo any course in any Nigerian institution that equipped you for that kind of skill. So let's talk a little bit about this thing of careers in the creative space in terms of what really has been your experience in dealing with people. What do you think really needs to change, perhaps, in terms of fighting this bias and really providing adequately for this industry?
I think that right there is the biggest challenge that we have in this country. The fact that your passion or your skills and things that you're really good at cannot be legitimized by institutions and universities. I believe that that's one of the biggest challenges that we face, and that is completely hinged on how the government also perceives it. I started this journey being self-taught. When I was in advertising, I was a graphics designer, right? And I realized that there was no place I could really go and learn this thing aside from the vocational or like advertising schools that are also not considered. The degrees you get from an advertising school in Nigeria are not degrees per se. They are at best certifications. But for me, the skill was more important than the paper, than the stamp, right? And even when I went further to become an art director in advertising, I needed more knowledge, more certified knowledge, and I couldn't find, even though I found like online courses abroad that I was able to take. But Nigeria has just not gotten to the place where we place enough value on this skills. At best, we design and build programs around extracurricular activities and call them extracurricular activities. That's why what Nollywood Studies Centre is doing is very, very important to like build institutional support around people who are not in conventional career paths like film, like music. I saw a conference happening at School of Media and Communications yesterday as well. That was like a music conference. It is really important to put some legitimacy behind these queues because the creator economy right now is in billions of dollars globally, probably worth as much as the consulting firms, the big fours and the big fives are earning. Their creators, Mr. Beast, who is a YouTube creator, is worth billions, and he didn't learn this anywhere. So we're relying on our self-teachings, but I think it's only a matter of time before we burn out if there is no institutional support to help us understand how to like learn these things better. One of my own biggest dreams is to help build institutions that will make it cool, that will make it okay to study creative programs and get certified in them. So the government really has a lot of work to do. I know that they are trying. The Ministry of Art and Culture particularly have been building partnership with institutions to make it a thing. But the journey is still very long, I must say, very, very long.
One of the things that I have seen, yes, I fully agree with you. The ministry is doing fantastic work, but I do think that on the side of the government, there perhaps needs to be a better harmonization of policies. Because whereas the Ministry of Arts and Culture is driving this, the ministry is focused on the creative industries and has this really fantastic plan to put Nigeria very high on the global map in terms of creative things. However, we do not see that support coming from the Ministry of Education.
Mm.
in terms of, because that's where it has to come from. We're talking about the workforce, because you cannot grow a creative economy if you do not have a well-trained workforce. Talent is fantastic, yes, and we have an abundance of that, but talent needs to be formed. And if we don't have that support amongst the different ministries in terms of harmonizing policy, well, and
No,
fine,
you just hit the nail on the head. There needs to be like internal cohesion within the government themselves before they come and sell us
yes.
anything.
Yes,
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
think that because what you said, for instance, about going to the advertising schools who can give you, yes, recognition, but
Yeah,
is not a certificate per se.
yeah,
Now, such institutions should be guided or should be under the purview of the National Board of Technical Education. Ideally, that's how
right.
it should be. And then really then we are then saying, well, what kind of curriculum exists? So that's, and sorry, I'm getting off on my hobby horse here. So let's move a little bit, focus a bit more on you. So how did you then get into talent management? Because you've said first civil engineering, then advertising, but here you are today, talent management. How did that happen?
I still give the credit to advertising because talent management is basically helping talent understand how their value can become monetized and how their lives in the creative practices that they are engaged in can be recognized as real substance. And what we did in advertising was basically the same thing, just for brands. So I had learned how to sell. I had learned how to create strategy for products to move from point zero to one. And while I was in advertising, I got a gig at the Africa Movie Academy Awards, the AMAs, as a creative director. It used to happen in Kigali, Rwanda at the time, and I was part of the team that put together that edition of AMAs. And I remember working on an awards in Nigeria, or like a Nigerian awards, was really filled with actors and people from different spheres of entertainment. And because of my role as a creative director, I was working backstage and I was interacting with a lot of these talents. And the questions that were coming to me was very consistent and similar. Can you manage me? And I really didn't understand what that meant. So I kept on saying no. And my client, one of my clients who has been my longest standing client, Inse, was one of the people I met at that edition of the AMAs, who hosted that edition actually, and asked me the same question of me managing her. And I also said no. We joke about that today because I really didn't think I understood what that meant. But there was a very insistent person. He's an MC and comedian who came and told me at my advertising agency when I go back to Lagos that if you can sell brands, you can sell talent. And it really just opened my mind to the possibility of actually working in that path. So I started saying reluctant yeses and hoping that these people that are trusting their careers into my little hands, I don't mess them up. So again, I was looking for the education. Yes, I now knew that there was demand for it. I knew that I was interested in it, but where's the education? And if you do a simple Google search of talent manager right now, the things you'll find will be related to human resources. So there is a similarity in terminologies with how managers are described in the HR world and in the entertainment world. So because when you're hired as a staff, you are considered a talent, and the HR
Right.
team have talent managers, and that has a lot of resources on the internet. That the little information about the talent managers in entertainment is buried in the 10th or 11th page of Google. And at the time, there was no AI or GPT or any of these things that would make you specify what you're trying to look for. I mean, if you search for talent agents, and I'll clarify the meaning in a bit, it was clearer and you got more accurate responses. But you never found accurate responses when you search for talent managers. So I started struggling with how to really learn this. And I give kudos to my early clients who trusted that I knew what I was doing, even though I didn't. So it was a lot of trial and error until I found a book, written by Troy Carter, who used to be the manager of Hollywood greats and musicians like Lady Gaga and all of these guys. Um, I read the book, and for the first time, I understood what it meant to be a talent manager. So it's not just a glorified assistants, they would have understood it, or so the education was missing. But thank God for people who have shared their own stories. Thank God for people who have documented their lives and their journeys as talent managers, from the Hollywood agents and Endeavor to Ari Emanuel to Clarence Evans. Those were the people that really taught me, even though I've never met these people before. So that's why I talked about mentorship and how it doesn't need to be like in person. Never met any of these people before, but they helped me really form my early understanding of what talent management was. And my first clients became second and then third, and then the rest is history.
So this education you're talking about, let's give you a chance to educate us. What exactly then is talent management? What does it consist of? And how important is it for our industry?
Yes. So a talent manager is the brain behind the magic. You know, there are so many talented people in this room on this call right now who all they know how to do is their talent, and rightfully so. That's all they should focus on. There are other people that understand how to make their talent a business, how to convert your skill as an actor, your skill as a designer, as a musician, into a bankable business that can actually earn you money. Because many of us can show our talents, but we really never get anything for it because it's a hobby to us, it's a passion. But what moves it from being a hobby to being a business? The person in the gap of that is the talent manager. The talent managers are visionaries who help you think of your talent as products and as businesses, and put you in the rooms where the opportunities will really take your talent to a greater height. So we are the opportunity brokers. We are the ones outside looking for the kind of opportunities that can take your talent to another level. That's the simplest definition of what a talent manager does. So if you watch a film and you see all these actors playing the roles that they were asked to play, they didn't just get there, they didn't just go on set. There were different layers of negotiations about what they got paid, the contracting, the paperwork, and all of that cannot be done by an actor because all they should focus on is becoming. All they should focus on is learning the ropes of that character that they're about to play. There are people who should help them think about how they get the best out of the opportunity that they're about to step into. So that's a simple definition of a talent manager. There's a simple difference between being a talent manager and being a talent agent. So agents do not necessarily help you build your brand or build strategies towards, bigger opportunities. Agents bring opportunities, simple and short. So they earn a finder's fee. Usually they call them the 10 percenters because when they bring an opportunity to you, they earn a 10%. But they are not obligated to building your career, to building your brand. It's a manager that is a close team member. The management is like marriage. That's how I explain it. It's the person that helps you from day one to day 10 when you are on your journey to building whatever you're building in entertainment.
Fantastic. That puts it out very clearly indeed. But now let's talk a bit about as we are today in our industry, not just in the film industry, because this is a role that cuts across different sectors of the creative industries. As we are today, well, I can't ask you how many there are, but do we really have many more people like you fulfilling this role? And are they people who are adequately prepared, given the challenges of finding a space where you can actually train yourself or get trained for this?
The short answer is no. There are maybe 2 million talents in Nigeria who are in different spheres of creativity. There are maybe 200 managers. The gap is alarming. And first of all, because it's a very thankless profession. The Nigerian creative industry hasn't figured out the credit system that talent managers can really call deserving, or we haven't figured out how to compensate managers for the work that they do because it's a very silent role. I mentioned my clients, you read my bio, some of my clients were mentioned, you probably know them, but like for them to get to where they were, there was a team behind them who probably will never be recognized, And because of that, and because of the kind of young people that are evolving in Nigeria, everybody is seeking recognition. So how do I convince you to pick the career path that doesn't give you any recognition when there are other career paths that give you recognition, like being the one in front of the camera? How do I convince you that, there is a power that does not require the spotlight? There's an influence that's, works best behind the scenes. And these are the issues why we'll never have enough, even if we do all the things we can do in training new managers. And it has become so important. I remember when Netflix and the streamers started entering, before Netflix and the streamers came into Nigeria, managers were completely disrespected because producers have personal relationships with the actors. So which means a producer can pick their phone and call an actor and tell them, oh, I want you in my film. This is how much I have. Are you free on so day? And then if the actor dares tells them to speak to a manager, it's considered disrespect. On the other hand, in Hollywood and our American counterparts, if an actor does not have representation, you are not serious.
Right.
As a matter of fact, producers, huge production companies like the HBOs, like the Universals, they are never going to hire an actor that doesn't have a manager. So it's the other way around. And I have to say a big thank you to the streamers for changing that a bit in Nigeria, because when this international streamers started coming into town, they couldn't talk to actors directly because it's against their policies. They had to talk to agents and managers. Now the actors found us more important because you're not going to get a call from Netflix or from Prime if you do not have representation. And our role started to evolve a bit more. We're still struggling. We're still trying to convince actors or talents generally to see the importance of having representation, even though there can never be enough managers for the amount of talents that exists. But even the little ones that are having, managers, how well are they utilizing them? How well are they compensating them? How well are they respecting them? So the journey is long. I have done personal trainings for talent managers. Some of my students have become managers themselves, but the question again is, how do we build a credit system for this career path when we're in this world where attention is number one and everybody wants to be a star? A manager is not supposed to be a star. A manager is supposed to be a quiet force behind the stars. How do we convince people to work like that in the world of the digital boom of like attention? So that's where the disconnect really is. And I hope it changes very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Taiwo. Let me just say to our audience, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we'll take them as we go along. Let me come back to what you said, Taiwo, about how do you convince people? How do you get them to go in this direction? Could it not be a primary problem, the fact that people are not so much aware of these different paths, these different career paths in the industry? Even for those now who do not appreciate the role, is it not part of that same problem, the lack of adequate knowledge, adequate education about the different career paths, what each role is meant to be, a situation where one person is trying to be all in all, which is not really suitable? Is it not really, if we were to put true training paths in place, educate people more about the possibilities in the industry? Because I think apart from talent managers, there are still so many other roles in our industry which are undeveloped and people are not aware. People are doing some of those things, but they are not aware that they are full career paths. So if we were to focus on that aspect in terms of in place in schools and so on, really trainings for these different roles, will it not change something?
Oh, absolutely it will. I think you're spot on. The average Hollywood actor has a minimum of 10 people on their team, just one actor. A perfect example is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, who is now arguably the most bankable actor in the world, has about 70 people on his personal team, right? Because
Wow.
to build a global brand, you need a village. And the manager might lead the team of that village, but there are so many other roles that people are not even aware of. Even on the managerial side of things, there is a talent manager, there's the road manager. So a road manager is not a talent manager. Road manager is the person that travels with the talent and makes sure that all the logistical problems are solved. I have 3 clients that are in different parts of the world right now, and I'm not there with them, but I have road managers attached to them. However, I have to stay and build the strategy and make sure that what they are experiencing in those different parts of the world is what they ideally should experience. So I'm the strategist. Aside from the road manager, there's the lawyer, there is the assistant, there's the creative team, there's a stylist, there's a photographer. There's so many things that come into like building any bankable star that we see today. And there is really everybody wants to be the bankable star. I think it's demystifying the importance of being the star and understanding that everybody is a star in their own right. When you see an Adele or a Burna Boy sell out an arena in America, there are maybe 500 people that worked on that team. But when Burna Boy gets a Grammy, it's Burna Boy's name that is on the Grammy. So again, how do we make people find contentment and find other approaches to like making them understand that your power is your power? So we can build education around those roles beneath it, but there's still a mental problem, right? There is a reorientation problem in making people understand. It's become so easy to be famous in Nigeria. It becomes so easy because attention is the currency. So if everybody becomes famous, who will be the manager? Who will be the lawyer? Who will be the stylist? Who are the people that work behind the scene? Because even managers now, which there's nothing wrong with that, are also finding the need to be in the spotlight. And I used to criticize it back in the day, but now I'm also understanding the importance because you as a manager, you need leverage to be able to help your clients become better. The moment your client can pick a call and close a deal with Coca-Cola or close a big deal with Rolls-Royce, then you become obsolete. So you also need to do the things that will get you out there and give you the attention and give you the relationships that you need to help your clients become better. So there's education and making people understand that there are other roles that are equally important and might pay you as well. But there's also the mental reorientation. That there are powers that does not require the spotlight, and that's where managers fall into.
Okay, I would also add, really, it's also a question of people identifying what their own talents are. Not everybody is talented enough to be an actor. Not everybody is talented enough, on the other hand, to be a manager. So it's that each
Absolutely.
one should find what his or her own skills are. Now,
Absolutely.
Business Insider, the publication, describes you as Nigeria's favorite creative industry advisor. Very nice title. But where did that come from?
It came from understanding that I can't possibly manage everybody. It's a very tasking job to commit yourself to the growth of somebody else. And then I started developing products and services that can leverage my wealth of experience to offer something of some version of management, to different kinds of talents that wouldn't be the full-time, full-service management. I started this small consulting firm called Boxxculture, where most of the talent that I represent obviously came out of, but it has really become a consulting firm for the creative industry. And over the past 5 to 7 years, we've really advised everybody. So I understand why Business Insider said that. So you walk into our doors, you necessarily don't have to work out with a talent management contract, but you can work out with a strategy, with a roadmap that can help you take your brand by yourself from point A to point B. Because there's already this existing problem that there will never be enough managers. So there's no need trying to manage everybody. However, how can you help actors and talent understand this management service themselves? Because I know really successful actors that have never had a manager before. They have been self-managed for a very, very long time. And it is a strategy, it's a pathway. It's not the most ideal, but it is a pathway. So we started helping actors and talents understand how to manage themselves until they find representation. Because between now and when you find representation, opportunities will come to you. What do? You don't say, oh, I don't have a manager, and I'm not going to take this opportunity. You should be able to understand the rudiment of negotiating a contract, the rudiment of pricing your creative work. What does an hospitality rider mean? What does a technical rider mean? So we started advising. So I have personally worked very closely with hundreds of talents who just come in, and in a 1 hour session, we distill their brand, we audit what is wrong, what can be fixed, what are they missing, and we give them a roadmap to something that they can run with themselves or with a team of friends. Because a lot of managers start as friends. It's somebody who is just really the fall guy, or somebody who is not afraid of being misunderstood, that is within your circle, that starts helping you take the calls that you are avoiding, right? So those kind of people become your first, and then they also grow and become managers. So I think it's important to focus on advising talent and making them understand the things that we do, and hopefully you can do them yourself until you find managers that can really help. And the firm really became like an advisory firm, and that's why that feature story was done.
Great. And they call you Oga Box.
Yes, Oga
Oga
Box.
Box. Oga, I know that. Great.
That's where that
Now,
came from.
what has been the success level? Because it's one thing to advise people, it's another thing entirely for them to take that advice and actually go to work with it.
Yeah.
So, what would you say, all these hundreds of persons you have advised, what has been the success level? I mean, I would like to use that as a lever to talk about the ones that really are your core clients, how it has been working with those core clients, and what has been your role in their level of achievement today.
Yes. Success level, again, talent management is very open-ended in cases where talented people have a listening problem.
Yeah.
When you're a genius, it comes with excesses. The job of a manager is to help you manage the excesses in a way that it doesn't destroy your brand and your reputation. So there are times where we've advised people and they've gone the other direction, and when things blow up in their faces, they still come to us to help them manage the crisis. But on a positive note, we have really been impactful in this industry. Like I said, there are not a lot of managers that operate in this space. So the little ones that exist that are really good can only do so much. And some of my clients who I don't even manage exclusively, who I just consulted with or like advised, have become global brand ambassadors. I've produced films. I've been in Netflix originals. I've, things that has made us proud. They have figured out how their talents can become monetized. They've also developed products, because talent is one thing, but you're not going to be able to sing forever or dance forever or act forever. What are the products you can create that can outlive you, that can be powered by your influence and your legacy? So we've helped a lot of our clients also birth products. And I mean, I think that our clients should speak for themselves and basically create like a testimonial documentary that I can share with the team. So I'm tooting my own horn. Yes, but to the other question of the people I work with full time, I've worked with INSER, for example, for the past 8 years, probably the longest standing manager-actor relationship in this country. It's not every time you see a relationship that lasts that long. It's a lot of people are very temporary, and management should not be temporary. Management is a long game. So when a manager understands your brand and what makes you tick and what makes you who you are, and then you leave them, and then you go to another manager and they start trying to learn you again all over. It's like a relationship, like you've known the person you want to be with, and then you break up, and then you start knowing another person again. So it's always advised to just stay with the manager and just help them grow, and like vice versa as well. And INSER is one of those people that have done that with me, and I have done that with. We met when I didn't know a lot about this business, and she has been patient enough to watch me grow, and in turn, she has become one of the most bankable actors in Nollywood. When I started representing her, she was actually completely out of this industry. She was on a 5-year hiatus, and it was a big task to craft a comeback strategy in an industry that is constantly evolving. So the space you think you held, you left for 1 year, somebody else is being considered for that role. But we brought her back because of her vulnerability and her story. I'm sure a lot of people might have heard the story that she shared that kind of, crafted the comeback. And since then, she was in King of Boys, The Return of the King. She has become really important both on the film side, on the brand side, and also on the activism side. It's very important for me right now that every talent I work with have an impact element. They're not just talents. There's something more important to them, like a mission, like a problem they're trying to solve in the world. And more recently, before the recent one, there's also R&D who I've worked with on very extensive levels. There's Shola Shobowale who I've advised for many years. And, there are success speaks for them. I think that it got to a point last year where I started realizing that my work has to extend beyond film. Film is always like the final bus stop for every influential person. The author, the social impact person, the journalist, the president, all of them eventually make films. Barack Obama left office and started a production company. Joe Biden left office and started a podcast. So it's at the end of the day, whatever you are doing in whatever field you're in, even in the academics, at the end of the day, your story must be told using popular culture, using storytelling. And that's one of the things we are helping the new people we work with now to achieve. Case in point, chess master, world record holder Tunde Onokoya, who we manage like a pop star. It's not the ideal way you will find, a manager working with somebody who's a humanitarian, but it was important that your good work it can be just enough, but it's very important that the people who are supporting can find relevance in your work in popular culture. So Tunde has been my most recent work, and I'm very proud of the success that we've been able to record with that as well.
Just a reminder to our audience, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we'll take them there. Now, you mentioned that it's important for you that those you work with, there should be a link with social causes. Why is that? Why do you feel that need?
I think, is it an existential crisis? You get to a point in your life where you know that there is more. There is more to do in the world. And one of the most powerful tools right now is entertainment. And I don't know if you saw Straight Outta Compton. That was one of the films that revolutionized Black culture in America. And even when George Floyd was murdered, there was like a film about it. I started studying what the merger between popular culture, entertainment, and social impact and social causes. What's that merger? What's the fine line? And in America and other parts of the world, they've actually figured it out. I started reading again. I'm big on consuming knowledge. Nigeria can make you feel like you are some local champion and you know it all. But when you study what your counterparts abroad are doing, you are inspired. And I learned about an agent who works at the United Talent Agency. That's one of the biggest agencies in the world, management agencies. And he was able to build a division that represented leading voices and influencers who were in social causes, and then brought them into Hollywood and make them pop stars so that their work can be relevant in culture and more people are aware of the good work they're doing. And in this world that we're in now, where we wake up every morning, there's some big news somewhere in the world. There's some war breaking out. There are cultural divides. There's tribalism. How can we use the creative industry and entertainment and culture? How can we use it as a tool for social change? How can we increase the volume of the problems that the world faces? And because I already worked in entertainment for so long and I have access to this kind of influential voices, it became important to me to convince them to think about their work a little bit deeper. It became important to me for them to think, what is my legacy and how can my work change something? How can me as an actor, there's an actor in Hollywood, Matt Damon, who owns a clean water organization and is using his influence to move like a very big needle in making sure that people have access to clean water. But he's an actor, right? I can go on and on. Reese Witherspoon is helping women find their voice again. Kevin Hart, Trevor Noah, they all have foundations. But in Nigeria, it's different. Everybody just wants to be a star and forget about the fact that the world is bigger than that star. The problems that the world faces, that it's important to use your voice to find some form of solution to it. So the little I can do is to work with people who are thinking that way, or to help people I'm working with think that way, which is what influenced my decision to start including, my desire to impact, the world with talents I work with, because it has become really inevitable. Social impact and popular culture must marry. It's become really inevitable.
In the instance that you find yourself with a client who's not willing to do that, would you still
Well,
want to go ahead with that
if they're making a
relationship?
lot of money, I will go ahead, because at the end of the day, I run a business, and I know that people always get there, even if they are not thinking about that in the moment.
Right.
When I met Inse, she wasn't thinking about social impact, but now, based on our own life experiences, and I think the age that she has gotten into now, what do you want to live for, if not help other people, understand what life is really about? So people change, people's opinions change, people's thoughts change. So I won't make a strong decision or a strong no based on you not being interested. I wasn't interested as well myself just a few years ago, but I will give you the grace. But if I see that you have completely uninstructed, even after many years of putting you in these rooms and showing you examples of your counterparts internationally that are doing the same way. I mean, it can be a grounds for like a serious conversation, but I will probably work with you first and hope for a change of heart.
Fantastic. Thank you. I have a question here from Mona, who is asking, how can emerging creatives like writers go about finding and securing a talent manager? And what does that typically look like financially?
Okay, financially, a manager, you don't pay a manager a salary or a retainer. A manager earns a commission. So whatever you earn, you have to share a little bit of that with your manager. Now, it varies what the manager earns. You see, agents that have a standardized 10%. But for managers, it ranges. When I just started, I was earning like a lower commission from my clients. But the longer I spent in the business, the more experience I had um, the I had the credibility to earn more, than I'm not going to tell you the percentage I earn now, but it's fairly more than how I started. And it is why I think it's important for emerging talents to be honest with their stage and what their income is right now. Because with what I just shared about managers earning a commission. So imagine if you earn 100,000 naira and your manager earns 20% of that. So that's 20,000 naira. Do you think, first of all, you want to share something that isn't already enough for you with somebody else if these are things you can do by yourself? So I always tell emerging talents to like be by themselves for as long as they can possibly be. There is no need to rush into representation. Like I said, there will never be enough managers for talents that exist in the world. So you can handle some of these things yourself until you find, first of all, a friend who is willing to help you handle some of these conversations. And friends, mostly we do it for free. Just tell a friend to help you handle a negotiation or read a contract or respond to an email. And, and then you keep growing until there's somebody who is experienced enough to take on your talent and your career. Because for managers who are really experienced, they consider this a business. And if you're not bankable, if you're not earning something that makes their commission worth it, the amount of time they will spend on helping you grow regardless becomes really, jarring to what they will earn. And I think that it's really, really important to work with a team of friends who believe in you and will not ask you for your head, But some of us who have spent more time here, it's hard for us to reconcile working with people who can even like compensate us for the time because it's very demanding. However, it's why I also build a platform like Road to Glow for people who are emerging to find resources, to find access to people, access to information that can help them grow. And when you then know that all the opportunities you are getting have become really, really dense and you are losing opportunities because you don't have help, then maybe you can consider having a manager. But for now, if you're still like earning little that is just enough for you, I think you should stay that way and work with friends who can help you, manage that situation better.
But it seems to me like it's a bit of a vicious circle, for lack of a better term, because someone who is just coming up needs the help of someone experienced to point out the way. The help of someone experienced can actually make a world of difference to that young upcoming person. But then if that person is going to demand an arm and a leg, then I'm not going to grow big enough soon for this person to want to come in. So what are the possibilities of, say, an experienced person like you, for instance, that like you say, the person has to be bankable. If you say, well, this person is bankable, this person has great potential, but cannot pay me right now. So let me invest in this person, knowing that by the time this person reaches this kind of level, I can then begin to demand what I am worth.
Oh,
Do
yes.
people consider that?
Absolutely. We call it the record label model. So record labels sign on a talent that nobody knows. Maybe he has one song, and then they pump, and they pump, and they pump money, pumping resources. And in the music industry, for an artist to become famous or to become a star, you must have spent north of 100 million, 200 million on that person's career. So, and you don't get anything back as a record label. Now, the artist becomes successful or they blow, right? The record label starts demanding a 70% or a 50% of their income. Now the artist is angry that I'm making you all this money now. Why are you trying to take all this money from me? But there is something called talent amnesia that when you add nothing, this record label spent 500 million naira on your career. Now that you have something, they have to recoup. And that's where a lot of fights and feuds always happen, in the entertainment industry. However, for managers rarely invest money. But they can invest their time, they can invest their resources. And I do have people like that I work with that I know that. So one of the greatest gifts of a talent manager is foresight. I should be able to tell if this person has a clear path to success within the next X number of years. And I predict really well. There are people who have become, fairly successful now who I was just advising when they just really started. And I think I always offer that, maybe not full management services, because again, there might not be a lot to manage at that time. But advice can be as valuable as management a lot of times, depending on the stage that you are in your career. So once I see that somebody is inevitably going to be a success, I was watching the screener for an unreleased film recently, the Vagabond Queen of Lagos. It was premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival.
Yes.
And there's this young actor, her name is Temi Williams, who starred in that film and was also the star of Eyimofe, one of Nigeria's most successful films as well. And before Eyimofe, I had met her and I told her that you're going to be a star. It's just when, not if, And I took her as a personal friend and we started working together on a very simple advisory note. So we talk and make sure that she's getting the right opportunities she should be getting, involved in some of the negotiations of the films that she's getting. But I don't exclusively manage Temi yet, because she's still young, she's still growing. But like I know that Temi is going to be in Black Panther one day. And when that happens, we will be here to now offer something more robust. So there are so many people that I work with on that. I may not be able to do too much, but I do the little I can. So if you are a young person that you're confident about your trajectory and you're really good at what you do, and you believe that the reason why the difference between you and success or the opportunities that can change your life is information or advice, I can always help. But I'm not going to promise management exclusively or any of those things, but I can always advise, because advice might be the difference between night and day a lot of times.
Right, great, thank you. I have another question here from Waymaker Talents, who says talent representation in Nigeria seems to have little or no business with the literary side of entertainment, screenwriting, for instance. Why is that? What really is the state of literary representation in Nigeria?
That's a brilliant question. And brilliant because, again, the Nigerian system, the Nigerian problem trickles down to every sphere, every industry. And I was watching a podcast this morning about how 1,000 streams on Spotify, 1 million streams on Spotify for an artist equals to $300. Let me say that again. 1 million streams on Spotify equals to $300. That same 1 million streams in Sweden is $10,000 for the artist. Why is that? It's the Nigerian economy. It's buying power and spending power. It's literally that simple. The reason why I will not represent a screenwriter, or managers will not represent a screenwriter yet, is because what does a screenwriter earn? If you consider the production budgets of a film and break down the economics line by line, first of all, the actor is at the bottom of that pyramid, but that's not the conversation for today. But there are people on that pyramid that earns a lot. Now, screenwriters are probably also close to the bottom because we do not value good stories. We do not value the role of the writer. A lot of time, the director is the producer is the writer. It's always a one-man band. So how do you find the business case for representing screenwriters or people in literature? And in America or in Europe, literary representation and literary agencies are some of the biggest in the world. So again, it's a Nigerian problem. It's not an entertainment industry problem or a creative industry problem. It's a Nigerian problem. If you can solve the problem from the top, if the buying power increases, if the economy increases, if the government places more value on creativity like a screenwriter, it makes people see why they should pay more for that kind of talent, and inevitably you find representation that makes the screenwriter also feel like a star. But I feel like if we don't solve the problem from the top, we're still going to be like merry-go-rounding around this, or who deserves representation or who doesn't deserve representation. It is not an entertainment problem. It's a Nigerian problem. And I'm hoping that the government just can find a way to empower some of these people, because there is no film, there's no story without the screenwriter. They are one of the most important team on every creative project, not even just film, right? So I feel like if we can think about this as a broader problem, we can think about the solutions in tandem with the government that can help us make this happen.
Fantastic, thank you. Emeka Bouvier has asked, do you also manage writers? But I believe the response you've just given covers
I work with writers. I work with writers very, very closely. I do not manage any writer, but I advise very closely. I consult very closely. One of my clients who I've advised for many years, Nicola Sinugu, just premiered a film on the sideline of Cannes. She's also AMVCA winning screenwriter who wrote Living in Bondage, Breaking Free. And Nicole and I have worked very, very closely over the years, but we have never exchanged a management contract, which is my point, right? So everything doesn't lie on being the manager. Is what other ways can you work? Or what other ways can we work? How can we exchange value beyond just, management? And I'm going to spend the next few months actually demystifying what management really is, and also making people understand that sometimes management is overrated. Sometimes you just need a friend who can help. Sometimes you need a friend who can advise, And the urge to want to share your money with people like us who are sharks and capitalists, needs to reduce, because there's a lot that you can do by yourself if you just have a friend who can put you through these things.
But I think it's important that that friend must know to begin with.
Yes, yeah, yes.
A knowledgeable friend has to be the
Yeah.
qualifier there. Now, Samuel is asking about your whether you have whether you have considered running a training program for talent management. Now, I will respond to that, Sam, because like I said, Taiwo and I go back a little bit. We have discussed this. We have actually even drawn up a curriculum for this. The only thing that has held it up is the typical problem of funding, because clearly those in the industry who would like to do this, well, they will not really be able to pay. So that is what has held up that collaboration so far. But we have already had that discussion. Let me come back actually to, because in line with this question of Sam, you already said something about Road to Blow, the structures you have put in place with Road to Blow. Now, I know that Road to Blow began as a documentary, which I loved, by the way, with lovely, lovely documentary. I really enjoyed it. So how has it come about now that what led you first to do Road to Blow as a documentary, and how has it now developed to where you have it today, where you have a strong community around it? Yes.
Yes, Road to Blow was a COVID project, a COVID realization. The entertainment industry shut down, and I started thinking about what are we eat. Anyway, the realization came to me that there are so many people that have committed their time in this industry. So how do we define an emerging talent? I struggle with that a bit when people use the term emerging, upcoming. Are you saying an emerging talent is somebody who started within the last 2 or 3 years in terms of timeline? Are you saying an emerging talent is somebody who has spent 10 to 15 years, but they're still emerging? Because what do you call somebody there are people who have been in this industry for 10 years and you don't know them yet. Will you call them emerging? Or will you call them like unknown veterans? So all of these terminologies, right, stress me out a bit. And I started talking to people who have spent 10 years plus in their creative practices without the definition of fame or success or people knowing them. So we gathered some of these people that we found in music, in film, in fashion, in comedy to a room to have a chat with them, which is what birthed Road to Blow. Like, you can spend 10 years on this road without getting the results that you're expecting. Now, how do we make that road worth it? Because based on data, more people will spend more time on the road than that destination that we all are hoping for. How do we build resources, support that can be an accompany for the people on the road to their fame or the road to the success? That's how the documentary was built. So we interviewed these guys and followed them to their different places of residence. We uncovered their backstory, and it really was something powerful that made people see this emerging talent as human beings as well. But after the documentary was done and we premiered it at Afrif and it traveled around for festivals, we couldn't end there. Okay, now we spotlighted these people. What do we do for them and the people like them that were not even in the documentary? So we created this social media platform where people started to follow, and we shared resources. We connected people together. We hosted live events, masterclasses, concerts, and we grew really, really, really fast. So we have almost 30,000 people in our community, and we've done that since 2021. And now, next stage is education. So we are building Road Institute, which will serve as, the answer to all these questions of training managers, training talent, training photographers, and creative people generally, to put our money where our mouth is. Because telling the story is one thing, selling the solution is another thing. And it's what Road to Blow has become with Road Institute. And we haven't actually launched Road Institute properly. That will be done in the next couple of weeks. And then there will be programs that will be introduced, hopefully Our program that we've been talking about, Doctor with PAU, will be one of those programs where we can actually help people like legitimize their skills and their talents with certifications and knowledge from people who have walked that path. And it's really, really important to me to do that this year to be able to help. We did a management training last 2 years. It was called Talk to My Manager. But again, you can only do so much in small, intimate rooms where you bring 20 people to talk about it. You cannot teach management in one day.
Yeah.
You can take the rudiments or the introduction, but we need actual programs that can be extended so that we can take it module by module based on the curriculum we develop. So that's the story of Road to Glow in a nutshell.
Okay, I have another question here from Waymaker Talent saying, seeing that talent managers earn commission, how would you navigate non-exclusive talent representation?
That's a talent agent, right? A non-exclusive talent representation is a talent agent, which means I earn a finder's fee whenever I bring an opportunity to you, but I'm not obligated to. That's how we earn. You earn a 10%, if I'm not exclusively managing you, but I'm bringing opportunities to you, I'm helping you figure out, how to, position for those kind of opportunities. But you cannot call me at 12 midnight, as your agent. Or as your manager, you can call me at 12 midnight. The obligations are different, and also the earnings are different.
Okay, well, Waymaker says thank you. Now, let's turn to something that I find very fascinating, losing daylight. I visited, I mean, I know we spoke about this. You shared with me even before the thing took off. I was quite fascinated. And I also visited the exhibition. Can you tell us about this? What led you to want to put together this exhibition, which I know took hours and hours of a lot of tedious work? What led you
Yeah.
to want to put together this exhibition, and where do you hope to take it? Although you say yes, the goal is to have a museum dedicated to it, to the story of the industry, the film industry. But let's hear from you.
Yes. Losing daylight, first of all, is a term that is used in film when you're running out of time on a production set. So if you visit a Nigerian production set, 9 out of 10 times you hear the director, the producers, or the ADs say, "We are losing daylight," which means get ready before we start having to power lights and stuff so that we can use natural light. So it really spoke to the urgency of documenting the history of film in Nigeria. And the project really started when I started collecting items from the history of film in Nigeria. I'm a big history buff in another life. So I find history very fascinating. And it's film this time. Who knows what it will be in the next 10 years? I then started to read about where film came from because I work in this industry, right? And I feel like many people work in this industry without understanding the context, of where it's coming from. And we're just winging it. And I got curious that how will the industry operate better if we understood where it came from? So we basically thought to solve the context problem because there are people who are in their early 20s in film who are screenwriters or like assistant directors or even producers that have never seen a VHS tape before or never knew about the NTA era of Corporal at Dawn and Village Headmaster. I know I'm sounding old, but I'm not old. I just read. I read, and I know history. So I figured, how can we make history of film cool for people like us? That's why Losing Daylight was born. And I went to my grandmother's house, who was the only person I knew understood film in that sense. She used to be a collector of home videos. And then when I went to her home in Ibadan, I learned that she had destroyed everything.
Ooh.
And that just made the project even more important. That who else is destroying the things that we consider, that trash, or I can't store this anymore? How can we preserve? How can we collect, first of all, preserve, restore, and display the history of film in Nigeria? And then I started asking my friends in film and my clients and colleagues, how old do you think film as an art form, how old do you think it is in Nigeria? everybody will say early 2000s or late 1990s, because of the living in bondage, fallacy, right? However, it goes way, way back to pre-colonial Lagos, to when, the Spanish people came to screen silent films in 1900, which is well over 100 years ago. So I was so fascinated by it that I wanted everybody to know that if you have an idea how film was consumed, distributed, how the stories were told, how would that impact what we are doing today? Because context solves the future problem that we are all trying to optimize for. How, if we know how NTA structure their production deals with the TV shows that they produced, how would that help us structure our deals today? Because we know all the Netflix originals, but there's nothing new about Netflix originals. NTA commissioned independent producers to make shows. That's what an original is, simple and short. It's what Netflix is doing today. But it's not new. So it became important to find artistic ways and entertaining ways and creative ways to display the history of film, which is what birthed the exhibition. So we first spent months traveling around town to collect the items we could find. We didn't want to make it digital at first because the tangibility was really important. So we got costume, we got equipment. We have over 2,000 VHS tapes in our collection. We have scripts, we have all of these things. And then when we had enough, we then hosted an exhibition of these items that all the filmmakers that are trying to tell a story today come and see what this thing was many years ago. And hopefully it helps you tell the better story. It helps you understand where this industry can possibly go. And the plan is to have a permanent site, for these collections. And we currently have some sort of permanence at Glover Memorial Hall. We recently completed our permanent exhibit. So by permanent, it means for as long as that building exists and is in concession of Joker Silva and a family and a production company who currently run the place, the exhibition is there. But that's just even little of the things we have. It's just the hallway on the first floor of Glover Memorial Hall. So you can go and check it out. It's open Mondays to Fridays. But the goal is to have a standalone building because there's a lot to preserve. There's a lot to protect. There's a lot to redefine. And that's how the Losing Daylight story was born. And hopefully we get there very soon. It's a huge project that requires a lot of funding. And we've been able to come here thus far with the support of friends and people who think it's important to document history.
What has been the reaction, the feedback? Because it's one thing to have the goals you have, but then how have people reacted? Have they taken it the way you expected them to take it?
Yes and no. We have done about 4 exhibitions in the past 3 years. The first one was, in my opinion, was like the one with the best reaction to people, because people didn't know how much they needed it, until they saw it. So when people came around, it was a lot of shock and nostalgia. And then you'll be able to differentiate people's ages based on their reactions. There are people who had never seen, a phonomatic projector, a VHS tape, or all of these things before. And there were people who were also indifferent. We work in an industry where people expect certain projects from a certain type of people. So there are corners in our industry that didn't think I was the right person to pull off that kind of project. But we've talked about this. We keep talking about documenting our industry, but nobody did it. So somebody had to do it. Now, whether it's the right person or not, the project just had to exist, and I'm grateful that the project exists now. And then the second one we did in December of 2023, which was our biggest yet, at EcoBank, Pan Atlantic Center. It ran for 5 days, and that welcomed a lot of people from different walks of life. So we knew that there was something there. We've done one other one in collaboration with TikTok, because TikTok is trying to play a bigger role in the film industry now. That's an insight I'm happy to share with everyone. They've done a lot with the music industry. The definition of a successful song is if it has a TikTok virality surrounding it. Now they're trying to do the same for film, because they suddenly realized that 6 billion views on TikTok is courtesy Nollywood content.
Wow.
Yeah. So from the Akia Popo memes that people share to the newer ones, 6 billion. So They started something called Nollywood November last year, not 2 years ago, and I was hired to curate that event, right? And we infuse the exhibition into it as well, so that they can teach using TikTok tools and creator tools how to tell stories better in Hollywood. How can producers learn the techniques to be a better marketer using TikTok and all of that? So, and then that was also really well accepted. So it's been mixed feelings, but generally, I think that people knew that it was needed, and we're just hoping that we have enough resources to take it where it really needs to be, because there's so much to do with this simple concept.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let me squeeze in, our time is almost up, but let me squeeze in one last question. Polygon. What is that about? It talks about you're creating collaborative spaces and resources for storytellers. Tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Yes, I think that so many people have amazing ideas, amazing films, amazing projects that they're working on as creative people, and one of the biggest problems they face is the space to execute, and because I am solutions driven, so when I think of something that is missing, I try as much as possible to solve it. And last year I started seeing the big problem with creative spaces in Lagos. So they are co-working spaces, but they are all optimized for the tech industry, right? How could we not have like creative-driven co-creation spaces, which is what Polygon is. A polygon is a shape that has many sides, and that's the story of the creative person. And we wanted to build a community, a physical space where people in different facets of the creative industry can come in and be whatever they want to be. They can incubate themselves, they can teach a class, they can host an exhibition, they can be whatever they want to be without the bottlenecks that the conventional kind of creative spaces we give them. So it's a simple, and my office is also in there as well, but the larger part is to just host intimate gatherings that will help creative people thrive and also give them a space to be whatever they want to be. So if you're trying to host a writing boot camp, a workshop, a screening for your film, you can always reach out, and then we can see how we can collaborate to make it happen at Polygon. That's why the space was built. And it's a proof of concept, again, for like different kind of spaces like this around Lagos and Nigeria, if we get the funding that can propel us further.
Okay, but this first one you have done, this is self-funded. It's funded by your company.
Yes. As most of my projects are, we always do the first one by ourselves to show that this thing is possible. Because the thing with funders is they need to see that you believe in it enough for them to commit their own resources. So it was hard, but we had to like develop this minimum viable product ourselves to say, this is what is possible. And if you add a little gasoline to it, this is what it can become.
Right, right. Thank you so very much, Taiwo. Our time is just about up now. This has been very enlightening. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I hope I can say the same for our audience. Very enlightening indeed. So thank you so much. And really, we must do something about that collaboration to drive the tree thing. We've been talking about it for so long now, so we really need to push. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing.
For your support over the years. You've been a big part of our story, and I'm grateful for your constant support. I've had a good time here as well.
Thank you. And thanks very much to our audience. Thank you for your questions. And we look forward to welcoming you to our next edition. Thanks a lot. Taiwo, thanks again.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.